Hello, my name is Amanda Boone, and I'm the director for the IRB office here at UT Dallas. And today I just wanted to talk a little bit about informed consent. First off, let's talk about what informed consent is. Informed consent is a voluntary agreement for an individual to participate in a research study. And it's the basic ethical obligation of a researcher. So it's important when doing informed consent, it is providing information to the participant about the study, what they will experience, what type of procedures are going to take place, what's expected of them, type of information, so that they can then make that determination on their own whether or not they want to then sign up for this study and actually participate. Language must be used that is easy to understand for anybody on the street, any average individual. So no scientific jargon can be used, and it really needs to be broken down. All the procedures, everything needs to be broken down so that it's easily understood by anybody. And we do recommend 6th to 8th grade reading language. So informed consent is required, and it's important that it's done for every single research project that involves human subjects. It doesn't matter the type of study that you're taking place. Whether it is in person, where the investigator and the participant actually meet and have some sort of interaction, or whether it is virtual and they're no interaction at all between the investigator and the participant, or they never even meet. It's still important that the informed consent process take place. It is also important to know that it doesn't really matter whether or not you are just going to be enrolling people from your lab, people who you consider to be colleagues, folks who you believe have knowledge in your particular scientific discipline. You still need to go through the informed consent process, and you should never assume that somebody understands. It's important to just go ahead through that process and document that and determine that they do understand. It's really important also to know that no participant data can be collected without prior informed consent. Documentation is very important. It is good to know, though, that those studies that are deemed to be exempt studies by the IRB do not need to go through this documentation. No signature actually needs to be collected. You just go through the process and kind of go through it verbally or online, depending on how the study is built. However, for all of the other studies that are not exempt for IRB, designation. Typically, the process is, if it's in person, there is a physical form that is then signed by both the participant and the investigator. If you're doing it virtually, the consent signatures can take place via REDCap or another UTD approved platform. Participants and researchers should sign the form, both of them, and they should sign it at approximately the same time. It's really important that the investigator don't forget to sign. It's important to have that participant signature, but it's just as important to have that investigator signature as well. The investigator signature really does mean that the informed consent process did take place as approved by the IRB. And that the researcher did really determine that the participant met all of the study criteria, was appropriately consented, and understands the requirement of the study as best determined by that investigator, and then also does receive a copy of the signed consent form. Federal regulations do state that investigators shall give a copy of the consent form to participants. So that is a very important detail as well, that they do have and receive a copy of that form. And of course, a copy of the signed consent form needs to be retained by that investigator and placed within their study documents for the life of the study. It's really, really important also to know that you want to make sure to use the most current consent document. And you'll be able to know whether it is the most current by looking at the stamps. So every time that an informed consent document is modified or any changes are made, the IRB office will approve it and then a stamp will be adhered to it. So you'll just want to make sure to look at the stamp. Usually that's going to be at the bottom of in the footer of the consent document. Sometimes it's in the header, but usually it's in the footer. And that will let you know which one is the most recently approved. Please do not put any handwritten changes on the form. A actual modification does need to take place if changes are needed to the language within it. So any changes that you want to make to that, just submit a modification and the IRB will take a look at that and then most likely approve that. So any changes need to be approved prior to use. Please do not cross out language and handwrite something over the top of it. Please also don't put anything else handwritten on it, whether that be notes about that participant or the procedures, whether that be for your use to refer back to, or whether you're making notes on this participant for other lab members working on the study. Please use another mode to do that, to make those notes. Do not write participant codes on the study to link that participant to this consent form, and then also all the other documents that you're collecting data on. And then don't write contact information for that participant, email addresses, phone numbers, anything like that. That should take place on another form. It's also really important to know that informed consent doesn't stop at signing the informed consent form. But documentation is important, but it's not the only step. Informed consent is a process that really starts at recruitment and then continues throughout the life of the study. Researchers must continually assess the participants' understanding of the study and their willingness to participate. For additional information on informed consent, please contact the IRB office.